$12,225, give or take a few. If that's all you wanted to know, there you go. If you are interested in seeing that cost broken down, watch on. I went into this build completely unfocused on the budget, spending whatever I needed to in order to achieve the vision I had for the build. I've done lots of builds in the past where the budget is a factor, and you can still build an epic dirt bike with a smaller budget. You just have to decide which upgrades are worth it and which are not. I'm fortunate that all of that $12,000 did not come out of my own pocket, as I had a lot of amazing companies who supported this build by providing parts or discounts on parts, and I will be talking about them in this video as well. In fact, there were 20 companies who supported this project, and that in itself is a crazy number. So while I will try to touch on each of them in this video, please read the description of this video and go show some support to any of these companies that might be relevant to you or a project you're working on. For those of you that don't know, the bike now has 3.1 hours on the meter, and I've had the opportunity to ride it 3 times. It's now in my living room, shined back to perfection, ready for whoever wins it on December 15th. If you're wondering if you can win this bike, the drawing will be live streamed on December 15th, and you'll be able to enter up until the day before. So if you want a chance to own this CR250, you can get yourself entered on my website, which is linked in the description. I can't thank you all enough for the incredible support thus far, and I cannot wait to see who wins this thing. So let's jump into it. To start it all off, I bought the bike for $700 from a guy named Corey in Driggs, Idaho. Now, when I build a bike, I like to factor in all associated costs, and I spent $120 on fuel getting to Driggs and back. From here, we'll start with major costs and start working our way down. The SmartCarb on this bike retails at $819. Now, while that is undoubtedly a pricey part, I could not be more impressed with it. The power still has that aggressive 2-stroke hit, but feels smoother all the way through the RPMs. Not to mention, tuning the SmartCarb is incredibly easy. It compensates for altitude adjustments, it cannot spill fuel, and it looks so good. Daniel and I were discussing the power characteristics of this bike after riding it, and Daniel even said he doesn't think it feels like a carbed bike. The characteristics are just so smooth and crisp, and I think that is largely attributed to the SmartCarb. So, expensive? Yes. Worth it? I think also yes. I spent $500 on the Ti-nitride coatings for the fork stanchions and shock shaft. Someone corrected me on a previous video when I was calling these DLC coatings. He clarified that DLC is the black coating and that blue finish can actually only be done with the Ti-nitride process. Anyway, I did the prep work myself and then sent them out to Daniel Schmid with DSC Motorsports, who got them taken care of. In all honesty, I had these coatings done purely for looks. That said, they do have performance benefits in that they reduce friction, in turn reducing heat over time. I gave Daniel $200 for his time despite him being kind enough to offer his support for free, and on top of that, suspension parts would have cost me $150, but I was fortunate to have the support of Pryme MX for those Pro X suspension parts. I Cerakoted these parts myself, which cost around $70 in Cerakote materials, and I spent $150 in gas getting to Daniel's shop and back. This puts us at a total of $1,070 for the suspension rebuild. That said, it was completely worth it. They look incredible, and the valving updates that Daniel did were great, and the bike truly handles like a modern machine. Next up, the stunning handmade cone pipe from Hygge Performance retails for about $698 US. This is actually a Canadian company, but again, not an inexpensive expansion chamber by any means, but truly the most beautiful pipe on the market in my opinion, and fitment could not be better. Truly, I have never had a 2-stroke pipe align so easily, and I am just giddy every time I look at this thing. I spent $541 on a brand new cylinder since the threads for a stud in the old cylinder were stripped out. The wheels from Warp 9, complete with rotors and all titanium hardware, cost $942. As you may know, I often refinish wheels because they are expensive. But for this build, I wanted true anodized hubs in this specific colorway, and Warp 9 is in my opinion the best option for aftermarket wheels because there's no compromise in quality and they're still cheaper than most brands. On those Fresh Warp 9s is a set of Shinko tires, which ran about $200 for the set, and on that rear wheel, we've also got a Dirt Trick sprocket, which is the best combination of strength and weight that money can buy for a sprocket. This sprocket runs about $119 and is worth every penny. I spent $420 on a pair of Myler's Super Cool radiators, their hoses, and clamps. The radiators are slightly larger than OEM, which to be honest was a pain for hose installation on the CR, but is certainly a pro when it comes to cooling. The hoses were high quality, but one was the wrong diameter and I had to stick with the OEM hose. The clamps I was disappointed with, as I assumed they mimicked OEM sizes, but they had a wider outer diameter and weren't the best. The Ride Engineering triple clamps on this bike run about $650, and this is one of those parts that I think attributes a lot to the improved handling of this bike. Geometry and ergonomics have changed over the last 20 years, and these clamps make this older chassis turn and feel much more modern. Not to mention, damn do they look good. The Phathead Racing cylinder head runs $350 and can really be looked at in two ways. First of all, it's flat out sexy and adds a beautiful bling factor to your bike. That said, if you're the type of rider who wants to make engine mods and improve your bike for different scenarios, Phathead makes it so easy. It's only about a 45-minute process to do a dome and fuel swap, which completely changes the power of the bike with literally a bolt-on part. Plus, Luke over at Phathead is the man, and he will always be willing to help if you have any questions or problems. Customer service is becoming a lost art, but not in the case of Phathead Racing. One upgrade to the bike that both Daniel and Monty immediately commented positively on after riding it was the Magura hydraulic clutch, and I could not agree with them more. It works perfectly. I rode Monty's 2023 CRF250, which still has a cable clutch, and it's incredible how much better this Magura is. This runs $329 and would be one of the first upgrades I would make to a CR if I were to do this all again. We're running tons of Wiseco engine components, including the crankshaft, clutch plates, piston, gaskets, and seals. All of these parts together totaled $775. I've had a great experience with Wiseco parts and feel very confident in this motor for many riding hours to come. If you'd like 10% off on wiseco.com, you can use the code KP10. For other engine part replacements and upgrades, I bought some V-Force reeds for $150, transmission bearings for $100, and a Pro Circuit Factory 304 silencer for $155. I spent another $200 on Cerakote supplies for the rest of the build, and for another chassis upgrade, I bought a 2009 CRF250 swing arm on eBay, which is lighter and improves handling characteristics over the 2002 CR swing arm. This was $175. Of course, everything needed new bearings, so Pryme MX helped me out with those, but those swing arm, linkage, shock, and steering bearings would cost $225. I actually put $500 into the brakes on this bike, which I realized was a lot once I totaled it up, but it was worth it. All new Galfer steel brake lines, completely rebuilt calipers and rear master cylinder, along with a brand new 2023 CRF 450 master cylinder for the front. Brakes are one thing that have come a long way in the last 20 years, and a strong front brake is incredibly important. These brakes, given all of the upgrades, are competitive with today's braking standards. The rebuild kits I used were Pro X kits from the Pryme MX website. I spent $85 on a Works Connection skid plate, as I believe even for a motocross bike, a skid plate is important. All it takes is one rock to go flying through your engine case. And I ruined the linkage arm during disassembly, so I bought a used one on eBay for $80. The Polysport Restyle kit runs at $160, but the crew over at MX Plastics helped out for this build, and you can actually use the code MXP10 for 10% off of your order at mxplastics.com. You guys know at this point that DeCal Works takes care of me over here, but these graphics would have cost $300, the custom seat cover $95, and the custom stand $100. Cannot forget about these super grippy IMS foot pegs, which retail at $179. I've used IMS pegs on the last few builds and I'm consistently impressed. Fitment is great, and actually riding the bikes, the grip is phenomenal. I got new bolt kits from Fastmetric, which run $55 for the jumbo bolt kit, $23 for the plastic kit, and $40 for the engine bolt kit. Without hesitation, I would buy these for any build I planned on doing. For that amount of money, the time saved in refinishing old bolts is so incredibly worth it. The fresh nickel plating looks killer, and it's just nice to have spare bolts around. I spent $75 on new Pro Taper handlebars and $65 on a case saver from Australia that looks sick. I shipped the frame out to Charles at MX Revival so he could vapor blast it to perfection, and between shipping and what I paid Charles for his generous time and effort, that was $350. Now from here, this is the point where you say, wait, that's a lot less than $12,225. There are so many small, random items and purchases you need in a build that really add up by the end of it. A huge thanks to Pryme MX for covering a lot of these parts with the Pro X components they stock. Seriously, this was a huge help to the build, and it's from a brand that I have the utmost respect for, thanks to Cameron Niemela's pioneering this bike build scene on the internet. Guys, Cam is still battling cancer, and he still needs our help. I've personally donated $250 so far and would love to contribute more. Anything you guys can do really helps Cam and his family. That link is down below as well. And again, thanks to Cameron and Pryme MX for playing such a critical and supportive role in this build. Now to name just a few of those parts that bring this total up so quickly, we've got the chain guide, manual, oil, throttle tube, spark plug cap, spark plug, shift lever, chain slider, louvers, tubes, RC valve cables, bar pad, mud flap, hour meter, axle nut, grips, exhaust springs, wheel spacers, rim locks, linkage bolts, chain rollers, throttle cable, etc. And boom, $12,225. So, was it worth it? Well, yes. Obviously, I've known since the start of this build that this bike would be given away, so I never let myself get that attached. But after riding it, this is by far my best build, and this bike truly rips. While some builds can be kind of a novelty, this is a bike I think I could have a serious amount of fun riding for years. In general, on older two-strokes, after a few hours, I find myself missing my newer suspension, my brakes, my counterbalance motor, and so on. But this CR is so refined that it is seriously fun and seriously fast. Guys, I've been drowning trying to keep up with finishing this bike, making content, and getting ready for winter, so I haven't been as good at responding to comments lately, but I'm going to strive to be different on this video. I want to have a conversation, I want to answer your questions, so leave me a comment with any questions about parts, performance, cost, value, whatever it may be, and I will do my best to get back to you in a timely manner. The best 3 things you can do to support me and my channel right now are 1. Enter and get your friends to enter for the CR250. 2. Bookmark the Motorsport link I have in the description to make your parts purchases on motorsport.com, as I earn a commission at no extra charge to you. And 3. Click that subscribe button as we slowly approach 100,000 subscribers. Big things are coming to the channel for 2024, and I'm stoked to have you all along for the journey. Best of luck on winning this CR250, and thank you guys for the support.